are we saying that anybody who goes to that type of a church, that they may not be saved, they're not really Christians, they're, maybe they're listening and they're like, well, that's what my church teaches, or should I get out of my church?
Well, I think you can be saved in the Mormon church, but you'd have to pretty much disregard the lion's share of Mormon teaching in order to do it. Mm-hmm. But there are probably people who are there who hold a Christian view of salvation in Jesus and God the Father in heaven, but they hold that in spite of or despite the teaching of the church. So I never can speak for who's saved where. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you want to be in a place that continues to strengthen your ability to communicate the truth to others? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So even though you might hold an Orthodox position in an unorthodox, church, I'm not talking about Greek Orthodox, I'm talking about a non-heretical, an Orthodox position.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to be in a place where that you grow in your understanding of that, and not have to constantly eat through the thing and spit out the bones? I think that what you want to be is in a place where you grow. You see all over the place Paul talking about how you still are baby Christians. You're still too young. You still haven't learned. And how you're going to learn is to be in a place where the truth is affirmed repeatedly, not where you have to kind of dig out the truth in the midst of lies that are being told to you constantly. So I think, yes, if it was me, I would say to you, also, who are you going to bring your friends to? Who are you going to, this is a matter of evangelism as well, mm-hmm. right? So I want to be in a place where I feel so good about what's being taught that I could bring a stranger to this place and they will learn the truth.
Yeah. Just to build on this, because I could see some people going, oh my goodness, Jim just said that, it's possible that a Mormon is saved. Well, it could look like this. Suppose somebody went to Harvest Crusade event and Pastor Greg's preaching and just people are getting saved as they often and always do whenever he opens his mouth. It's amazing. And all of a sudden, this person goes, places their faith in Jesus. But then they don't know the difference, and they just go to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Sunday.
Right.
And they start getting plugged in there, but they had a conversion experience at a Harvest Crusade, but then didn't really understand the difference between Mormonism and Christianity, and then they go get plugged in to a Mormon church, and now you've got a very confused Christian. Mm-hmm. And so that's important. As far as this whole thing, too, of people being a part of the prosperity gospel, I think it just sets them up for a less than fulfilling spiritual life. While maybe sometimes those who are ultra cautious, they might miss out on the most that they can get. I think a lot of times if people in the prosperity movement were being honest, it seems like those who are really prospering are the Benny Hinns and those who are at the pulpit telling everybody to cash in, but it's not everybody living in the audience. They're living more disillusioned, and they're disillusioned because they're being told a gospel that doesn't leave room for sickness and suffering. Mm-hmm. And so when I was pastoring, and I've shared this before, I had this gentleman who was coming to the church and he was enjoying the church. But then I was having a hard time shaking a cold. And I told the congregation, hey, it's been about 3 weeks. I can't shake this cold for some reason. Pray for me. I got this cough. This guy comes up afterwards and says, man, I'm really struggling with you being my pastor and you can't get past this cold. Mm. So he saw a cold as like the simplest of things, like the small little mountain. And man, my pastor's faith is so small, he can't even get rid of his cold. I never saw him again. Wow. So that's what happens. People end up disillusioned when they get handed a belief system that says you can't be sick, you must be rich, you can't suffer, because that's not what Jesus said. He said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome it.
Yep, good word. Good word.
Ellie,
back to the Mormons, then one more time about Mormonism. Yeah. So we do a lot of outreach to Mormons, and what you'll find is that people are in systems and they have no idea what the system teaches. Mm-hmm. So they might hold a very Christian view, although they're in a church that doesn't hold a Christian view. But they've just gotten their view of Christianity from other places, and they're never going to even open a Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And, these are wards are run by lay people who may or may not be preaching through the Book of Mormon even correctly. And so it's really interesting to see what happens. That's why I say what it comes down to is what do we believe is the gospel? And if we actually stumbled accidentally onto the true gospel, we could be in a place that's not supportive of the true gospel, but you actually believe it's true. And so that's what's going to benefit you in terms of your salvation. So anyway,
and I know that we have Mormon listeners to this radio station because we meet them when we go out on events and stuff, and they'll come up to us, oh yeah, I go to this Mormon church, blah, blah, blah. And we're just like talking to them. They're talking to us like
Right.
You know,
They don't even know what
they
the
don't
history of
even
their
get-
own church is. Yeah.
And then there's other people who will write to us, like maybe even after this conversation, how dare you say that Mormons aren't
Right.
Christians? We're a Mormon family and we're Christians. And
Jesus is in the name of our church.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we have to define our terms, okay?
Yeah.
So now they believe in a different Jesus, a different Trinity, a different salvation, a different kind of grace, a different type of sin, a different type of eternity, a different type of origin. And you're going, well, what do you mean by that? Well, when they say you're saved by grace, what they mean is they're initially saved by grace to kickstart their salvation, but then they have to preserve it by works.
Well, grace under that term is the definition. So grace to
Yeah.
us means that God throws us a lifeline and pulls us up when we can't even do
Exactly.
anything to save ourselves. For them, grace is God giving you the ability to do the good works. That's the grace of God. It's
Exactly.
the strength to do the works.
That's fundamentally different
That's
than
a
what we
big
believe.
difference. That's a big difference.
And then but then you get into the polytheism, like,
Sure.
where people get
Well, look,
confused by this,
say it
right?
like this way. Are Muslims Christians? And most people would say, well, no. Well, why aren't they? They believe in Jesus, but he's a different kind of Jesus. Well, they believe that he's going to return at the end, he'll judge the world. But so there's many, many parallels.
Yep.
They believe in the Mary as a virgin. They believe in Abraham, and there's so much that you could say they affirm. But it's the differences that matter.
That's
Yes.
right.
And that's what excludes them from the camp.
Yep.
Yeah.